Mr. Syed Dhafar Al-Qahtani, First Secretary, Consul General of State of Qatar Mission in Kuwait, distinguished guests, fellow bankers, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and privilege to be an integral part of this interesting evening. It's a customary event every year with the changing dynamics in terms of global economics or banking or finance. We have better opportunity to interact with them, interface them through knowledge management. That's what precisely Doha banking is all about. We recognize the world is changing on account of globalization. Now, the economic nationalization. Before I came to the dais, I was watching the United Nations, the global summit of world leaders. American president was on the go in terms of America First policy. It also sends a differentiated thought leadership. Principle-centered values are getting redefined in terms of economic nationalization. I wouldn't call it as anti-globalization. It's economic nationalization. You have to protect your sovereignty. You have to protect your nation interest. Extraordinary set of changes happening in terms of technology, Internet of Things, cybernetic control, blockchain, artificial intelligence, a world at large with social media getting extraordinary transformation in terms of people power and consumerism more than anything else. World at large is getting redefined with consumerism. These changes are transformational, truly reflecting the new world order. We have scheduled annual International Monetary Fund meeting next month, early next month. In terms of global economics, the forecast needs to be measured and managed. We also have reasons to believe the world at large, global growth is not getting the momentum which we aspired for. When we recognized in 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed or Bear Stearns was bought out by JP Morgan, we realized it is a liquidity issue. The liquidity issue moved into a funding crisis, funding moved into a solvency issue, then sovereign issue like Greece. G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20. The policy makeup was inclusive. While world at large is recognizing financial inclusion is not an option. Inequality between the rich and poor needs to be bridged. Globalization brought so much opportunities at the same time. The gap between the haves and have-nots was widening. So essentially, the policymakers have to come to terms to converge in the public administration to see gross welfare to the mass. World at large, recognizing elimination of extreme poverty needs to be fixed. Gender equality needs to be fixed between men and women. Equal opportunity needs to be created. We have to bring in universal health care, universal education, more than anything else. Global warming and climate change, sustainability in terms of global warming and climate change. These are not ordinary issues. These are extraordinary issues. That's why Millennium Development Goals have been set in as Sustainable Development Agenda. In 2015, world leaders got together. What was pronounced in 2000 as Millennium Development Goals have been redefined as Sustainable Development Agenda to make sure the world is inclusive. Contentious issues between the developed world and developing world are getting bridged, and we need to create human dignity and human prosperity. So you need to build this global partnership. That was the dictum. We have serious concerns with the changing dynamics in the world. If you look at the global trade, the last 8 years we are grossly underperforming. Global trade used to be twice of the GDP on average prior to 2007. Today it is half of the global growth. 3.5% is the global GDP. Global trade last year, 2016, was 1.6%, which is not stimulating in any way to have a free trade. That's where contentious issues between developed world and developing world is widening again. Emerging markets are setting the incremental productivity. Over 60 to 65% of the global productivity comes from emerging markets. But they have to stimulate by ensuring their trade is not compromised. Their domestic agenda is widening. And precisely, new American administration is saying there's no free trade. It's fair trade to American advantage. America comes first. If you look at the matrix in terms of scorecard, global growth is 3.5%. That's what the IMF says this year. Possibly 3.6% next year. It remains to be seen next week when we meet what sort of outlook, economic outlook, we can aspire for. If you split between the advanced economies and the emerging markets, aggregate terms, advanced economies, which includes UK, US, Euro, Japan, if you look at a split, in aggregate terms, they should be doing the 2%. America is said to be recovering. America has started printing money from 2008, quantitative easing, money supply, improving the stock market, inflating the housing market. But it's not inflating the overall consumer price index. Still, they are struggling. In the last 8 months, they have increased the interest rate thrice. But the American well-founded, principle-centered values in terms of inflation is not happening. At the same time, housing market is recovering. American economy is said to be performing over 2%, and they should be reporting 2.1%. Euro, the enlarged enterprise on account of the Maastricht Treaty, is coming to terms. We have reasons to believe it's working now. It's 1.9%, which is quite interesting. While the monetary policy is centralized, fiscal policy is decentralized. Enlarged Europe is a model even the Gulf states wants to replicate when they wanted to have monetary union. Now it remains to be seen what sort of reorganization is taking place in the Gulf on account of the political wrangling. When it comes to UK, with the Brexit, I was showcasing some of the answers which I gave to Sky News. You have seen the clips. Brexit is a major issue in terms of trade. They have to renegotiate the complete bilateral opportunities around the world. At the same time, EU is a major reservoir for fueling the UK trade. Now with the Brexit, we have to see what sort of trade or investments, banking or finance, they're going to reset in real order. Again, economic nationalization was the agenda. The referendum, which came on June 23rd last year, has been prolific enough to redefine the business modeling for the UK. Japan started printing money since 2012. America can print money, Europe can print money, Bank of England can print money. They have to pull out Japan from the technical recession. Abenomics was invented, and where they started printing money and money supply inflated them, and they're doing well in the last 4 years. If you look at it, they are coasting well. This year they should be reporting not less than 1.6, 1.7%. That's very good. The currency is weakening. Export-driven economies are performing. When it comes to emerging markets, whether India or China, Russia or Brazil or South Africa, BRICS, what you call, you have interesting equation. Gone are the days of extraordinary momentum in terms of Chinese growth. Now they're slowing down a bit, but still, Chinese economy, the second world largest economy, is performing 6.5 to 6.7. In aggregate term, India, as a functional democracy, with the market liberalization and convergence of politics and economics, we should be doing 7.2%, but last quarter was on account of the demonetization, we have an issue, and last quarter was the lowest in the ebb, 5.7%, which is pulling back the overall principle-centered reorganization. South Africa should be doing 1%, while Russia should come out of the contraction. They should be reporting 1.4%, and we have reasons to believe Brazil still under pressure. Last year they were in negative performance. Possibly they should be doing around 0.3%. That's the world growth today. That's the table. In terms of Middle East, North Africa, Afghanistan, Pakistan, if you look at it, they should be reporting around 2.6%. We have Gulf states, 45% of the world oil, 25% world gas comes from, since 1981, acting as one fraternity, Gulf Cooperation Council countries. When the oil prices were $100, they were reporting multi-trillion as their gross domestic product. With the deflection of oil price since 2014 end, the GDP is around 1.4 trillion. The changes which has happened since June, 5th of June, is compelling for us to see everyone is losing in the game. GCC is known for cooperation and coordination. Unfortunately, the conceptual difference in terms of overall framework now is redefining the economics. Our objective of the session today is to recognize what sort of opportunities coming up. While we look at the challenges, we recognize we can create a win-win model. Challenges are always there between politics and economics. Convergence of politics and economics can revitalize if you see the light in terms of positive momentum. That's the principle-centered purpose of this session. The purpose behind today's session is to define you the global economics, which I did now a few minutes before. But the challenge remains. Still, global economics is having impact in the regional space. Unless global trade is fixed in terms of contentious issues, ironing out the difference between developed world and developing world, we are not going to have a seamless world. Global investments is tilting in multiple forms. It's speculative. It's a gambling ground today. Currencies are manipulated to a large extent, so commodities are, again, interconnected with currencies, and they have their own highly volatile economics. Financial markets are nothing but gambling grounds in real order, whether stocks or currencies or commodities or bonds or properties today. It's getting redefined, highly unpredictable, highly volatile. The Gulf states is going through extraordinary turbulence now. Extraordinary set of changes are taking place in place like Qatar. In a minute, I'll explain to you. There are many people ask me on the ground, how is Qatar? What's happening to the crisis? I'm obliged to explain to you the statement of fact. Some of the video clips which I showed you is telling clearly Qatar financial stability is not at stake. After all, if you look at a bigger picture, I'm going to show you the actual economics. I'm going to show you some of the facts and figures. At the same time, what sort of reorganization we can do between Kuwait and Qatar. What sort of opportunities we are evolving. Kuwait itself is going through a new Kuwait conceptual vision of 2035. Vision and values which are embedded in Kuwait economy is been a compelling opportunity for us to realize. Kuwait underlying fundamentals are strong. Most of you must be recognizing it is an economy which has got very strong economic fundamentals. We have a GDP of 127 billion, according to IMF, taking oil at $45. That's Kuwait economy. You have a current account surplus. It's a AA rated country. Apart from UAE, Qatar, Kuwait is an economy with a AA rating. In fact, the sovereign fund is over $450 billion. And essentially for 4.3 million population, you have current account surplus, investable surplus. Inflation is an issue. According to IMF, it is showing at 4.5%. Perhaps the monetary policy by the Central Bank of Kuwait is prudently managed, and they can contain it. They are containing it. We have seen the reflection in the market space. They even changed the interest rate when American dollar interest rate was raised. So conceptually, Vision 2035 is a very impressive one. It talks about sustainability in terms of habitation. It talks about climate change management. It talks about healthcare. It talks about education. It talks about infrastructure creation. It talks about the overall diplomacy and statesmanship in terms of global phenomena. So it's an extraordinary vision. Perhaps I should show you the clips which are very interesting. So let's move on straight to Kuwait. The opportunities in Kuwait is interesting. I'm not going to go through the text, but I'm going to show you some of the video clips which is worth showcasing. The concept of future starts with you is very igniting. See this video clip.
What is the future of Kuwait? It's the development of smart cities to house our growing population, offering more opportunity for home ownership. The future. It's a commitment to conservation, to improve our air quality, protect our local water resources and fisheries, and provide our families with a healthier, sustainable living environment for generations to come. We're building for the future. The future of Kuwait starts with you.
The future starts with you. That's a great concept. So it's conceptually very interesting thought leadership. Now, we have to see what are the opportunities coming out of Kuwait in terms of fiscal reforms we have seen. Of course, they have to balance the budget. In order to balance the budget, there are some tariff hikes, whether it is water or electricity or fuel subsidies. That's one aspect. But it's a deficit financing. In substance, if you look at the expenditure versus revenue, the revenue was around 43 billion as against the expenditure of 65. That's going to show that how much opportunities you have. If government starts spending money, you have more infrastructure creation. And that is precisely, we have seen the reflection. Opportunities in terms of SME sector is mind-boggling. The Kuwait Business Index, if you look at in global terms, according to IMF, is almost 90% of the businessmen are small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. That's a good sign. It's a backbone for an economy in terms of growth or employment opportunities. You need to have sustainability through small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, and that's the showcase. And there are bigger opportunities in terms of SME policy makeup, and how we can leverage on it is what we need to see. When it comes to policy makeup for investment climate, they are getting liberalized. Vision 2035 talks about liberalizing the investment climate, creating a single window, ensuring minimum operating procedures for you to enlist your enterprise, and making sure you have tax holidays, you have customs duty waiver, you have import duty waiver, you also have corporate tax, which are for big enterprises, at the same time proportional tax reductions for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. So plenty of opportunity for you to look at with cautious optimism. When it comes to infrastructure space, I don't need to tell. I saw the various malls here. It's growing, 360 degrees avenues. And again, you have Sahara Golf. You have skylines are building. Momentum is on. We have to recognize this. While the infrastructure creation is going to give enormous opportunity, airport, Terminal 2 is said to be, definitely you need to modernize it. Terminal 2 is coming up in 2022. We have railways from South Kuwait, Southern Kuwait to North. Metro, Kuwait Metro is another opportunity. Mubarak Kabir Port is another opportunity. Sheikh Jaber Causeway, that is another opportunity. So plenty of reasons to believe Kuwait infrastructure creation is going to be a great momentum for us to grab. When it comes to healthcare, I have reasons to believe it is engaged in real order to promote average citizens' security in terms of personal health care. Kuwait tourism itself is very ambitious to promote. Let's see some of the interesting things.
What is the future of healthcare in Kuwait? It's satisfied patients, healthy citizens, and thriving communities. The future. It's a modern national healthcare system with world-class hospitals and research centers, highly trained doctors and medical staff, and faster emergency response times. With a renewed focus on health education and prevention, to reduce rates of illness and disease, to live longer, fuller lives, and to build a vibrant, nurturing nation for all our citizens. To learn more, visit newkuwait.gov.kw.
That's the new healthcare. That's interesting, isn't it? So it's conceptually very interesting to look at education and healthcare is the total reassurance to average. So it's not the end by itself. I just gave a flavor of what sort of reorganization taking place in terms of Vision 2035. If you look at the bigger picture in terms of financial markets, year to date, you have 20% stock market up. The best performing stock market in the Gulf is today's Kuwait. We also have reasons to believe the currency is stable and functional. when it comes to the fixed income securities, there's a very interesting development. Today, Kuwait has borrowed $8 billion this year. One is the 5-year tranche, $3.5 billion, which was issued 5 years notes, debt paper at the rate of 2.8%, 2.88%. That's a very good pricing. For a AA rated country, it's an extraordinary low-cost funding for the fiscal deficit. They have to, when there is a budget deficit, they have to borrow money and make it up to improve the overall liquidity. When it comes to 10-year note, 3.6%, again, it's a very good borrowing. And it was oversubscribed for $8 billion, which they mobilized in the market. There was oversubscription to the tune of $29 billion. That shows how strong Kuwait economy is all about. And what rate you borrow. It's not only borrowing. At what rate you borrow, that matters when it comes to your credentials, when it comes to international investors. And Kuwait managed to be very successful. So if you look at the bigger picture, the financial market, stock market is doing well. Currency is stable and functional. And again, the economy is having a very good vision, 2035. The financial performance of the economy is building great momentum. You have a minor contraction in terms of growth. That will be offset by the government expenditure. If government start spending all the money which they budgeted, your economic momentum will be in good stead. And that's precisely the purpose. That's one part of the story. That's Kuwait. Then what is Qatar? Many of you are worried about the various news coming out from the media. And we have to understand how much is truth, how much is not true. Let us understand what exactly Qatar is all about and Qatar economy is all about. If you look at the opportunities in Qatar, like I said, like Kuwait, you have economic fundamentals of a very strong character. Qatar is an economy with almost $177 billion. We produce oil, gas, and petrochemicals. We have a population of 2.6 million local and expatriates put together. And we also have reasons to believe Qatar economy will run in a current account surplus. Qatar has got sovereign funds, like Kuwait has got $450 billion, Qatar has got $340 billion. In addition, the central bank has got cash plus gold around $40 billion. So if you look at the overall reserves we have, is twice of the GDP minimum, between 2 to 2.5 times is the reserves. That is why when the blockage started, we had only one landline, that is Saudi Arabia. When there was, for account of political blockade, when it stopped, we had to go for plan A to plan B. We used to get the dairies or essentials, vegetables. We used to get it from Saudi Arabia through land port. Now it is coming from very many quarters, UK, India, Turkey, name it. We have multiple options coming up. We used to import steel from Saudi. Now we are importing from Malaysia. We used to have a transshipment in Jebel Ali for export-import. Now Qatar port itself, I showcased the video here. Huge amount. Hamad port has been with $7.2 billion. It's a new port commission. Now Qatar is showcasing that they can operate independently. They have shown in the last 3 months extraordinary resilience on account of the intrinsic economic strength. And the supply chain change from plan A to plan B has been a telling story around the world. Now, Qatar's financial stability can never be challenged because, after all, we produce oil, gas, and petrochemicals. When we start looking at the overall underlying economics, last year alone, we produced $164 billion. That's over $40 billion in terms of oil and gas. We supply oil and gas to around the world: Japan, South Korea, Singapore, India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Now we recently commissioned UK, Italy, Belgium, Spain, name it. We are supplying to UAE. It was never stopped by Qatar through Dolphin Energy projects through Abu Dhabi and Oman. So if you look at the bigger picture, we have oil and gas, recurring revenue. These are long-term contracts, 20 years, 25 years, long-term supply. It means recurring revenues are assured and the pricing has been agreed. We have investments, as I said, $340 billion. That generate return. The return last year is almost around $28 billion. If you look at the oil revenue, oil and gas revenue, hydrocarbon, plus the investment revenues, plus other revenues around $12 billion. If you look at it, Qatar economy is going to have the recurring revenues, irrespective of the changing dynamics, irrespective of the glut in the gas price or oil price. It's committed for long-term supply chain. The diversification and distribution as a prime mover in terms of natural gas around the world, second largest exporter in the world, third largest in terms of overall reserves. That's a huge, huge money spent. For 300,000 Qataris, you have so much wealth built in over the last 18, 19 years. That's the biggest strength Qatar has got in terms of the overall economic fundamentals. In terms of fiscal side, like Kuwait is spending more than what is we receive in terms of revenue purely to stimulate. That is, again, there are many areas which I have listed out here. It's healthcare, it's education, it's, again, FIFA 2022. We have reasons to believe we need to spend this money to stimulate the economy. The hydrocarbon to non-hydrocarbon. Today, if you look at the diversification, Qatar's diversification has worked. While 88% of the GDP is hydrocarbon in Kuwait, Qatar's GDP in terms of hydrocarbon is 48%, non-hydrocarbon is 52%. Even in terms of growth, aggregate growth is around 2.6% according to IMF. That's the highest in the Gulf. But the hydrocarbon is said to be between 4.6 to 5%, rather non-hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is 1%. So it is diversifying. In the event of a deflection of the oil price or glut in the gas price, you have economic sustenance, economic stability to withstand the pressure. And that's the message we have to get it. In terms of overall government reforms, today, after the crisis on 5th of June, Qatar has liberalized in many spaces. They opened up everything. In terms of free zones, we have 3 free zones. Multi-billions are being invested. Food security. We have, as a diversification for importing food, we used to have 2 years of stocks. Now it is going to be over 3 years. They are building additional port, again, conserved storage. You have a building in terms of water or food drains, and that's going to be a bigger opportunity to invest or even business to engage. We also have visa reforms. On arrival, you get a visa. 80 countries have been opened up, including India. The traffic, Qatar Airways, as you know, is a flagship carrier, 5-star airline. Essentially, with the new arrival, whatever the deficit in terms of the countries where they cannot fly on account of this blockade, that's been fixed now with additional routing. So a new flow of people again. Imagine, a country like India, if you have visa and arrival, what will happen? The whole equation is changing. When it comes to business, that's what I want to invite you. Within 72 hours, you get a license. It's guaranteed. Over 10,000 applications come, out of which 946 applications have been disposed in 1 month's time. 72 hours, you will get a license and business will be commissioned, land will be given to you, and there are banks like Qatar Development Bank and commercial banks like Doha Bank. We give joint risk participation. If you need capital, again, there are many businessmen. Somebody met me who's doing a poultry farm. I have to tell him that, yes, come and do business in Qatar as well as Kuwait. I call the businessman to come to Qatar as well. We can build this partnership. You want equity, the government is giving you, you put a portion and the balance portion of equity comes in. When it comes to debt, it comes from Qatar Development Bank and other commercial banks at a concessional interest rate. You have tax holidays, you have income tax free for depending upon the projects. You have customs duty waiver, you have import duty waiver. So plenty of opportunity for you to look at it because Qatar has to liberalize the market space in order to withstand the pressure. If this is not an opportunity, what is an opportunity? In terms of SME, we have come a long way. Over 15 to 18% of the GDP today is from small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. You have 3 industrial estates. We have a big market liberalization in terms of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. When it comes to infrastructure creations, airport, seaport, road, rail, and again, as I said, FIFA 2022, plenty of projects. So $230 billion worth of projects have been set in for the next 5 years, till 2022. I invite you to come and look at these options, what you can do together in terms of building this partnership. Let me show you some of the clips. When it comes to investments, the market is completely getting liberalized. As I said, it is already operational in terms of investment climate. You have Qatar Financial Center, which is opening up. I'm going to show you some of the video clips for you to look at it. So financial market reforms is happening. Qatar Exchange. In fact, today, the market is down 20%. This is the time to invest. Doha Bank and Qatar Exchange, we are putting up exchange-traded funds. Those who are in the financial markets can see it. You don't need to invest in individual shares. You can invest in one stock that is being promoted by Doha Bank and Qatar Exchange. And that it means, looking at the market, it's a bigger opportunity. We did an event. Qatar Development Bank CEO is sitting there, along with me, Qatar Development Bank, Qatar Financial Center CEO, and again, we have Qatar Financial Center CEO, and the Qatar Central Bank Governor was the chief guest for this function. We have showcased what sort of opportunities we can create. Over 500 people attended on August 16.
Qatar Financial Center. The fact. It's in Qatar. We're a business and financial center. We give businesses the power to do business here, here, and here. And this is our pitch. We're a platform to launch businesses east to west and west to east. We like this. We're not so keen on this. That won't happen. This will happen. Setting up your business here is like this, never this. We hate closed doors, even really nice closed doors. We're like you. And because we're like you, we've organized a world where business is done the way we both like it. Fast, easy, smooth. We're green lights, blue skies, and high fives. You want to work with John, Rashid, and the Hyun Woo sisters, and because we have them on speed dial, we can get you to the game. Not so long ago, we were this. Now, we're this. So saddle up. You're riding the Success Express, and wherever you go, we can help you grow. Qatar Financial Center. We mean business.
We mean business. That's the word. Doha Bank also means business. That's why we are here. Qatar Financial Center is plenty of opportunities. And it's completely liberalized. It's onshore. Onshore. That's the difference between the rest of the financial center and Qatar Financial Center. Let me show you a few more.
I will quickly go to some details on the arbitration law, stressing on the important part for the business community. Most importantly to note that Qatar has joined from long time and ratified the New York Convention for Arbitral Awards. And according to the Constitution of the State of Qatar, it is considered a part of the national law.
You have a new arbitration law.
There are many
you have a new
my colleagues talked earlier
bankruptcy
about
law.
Product
He's the
like
Qatar Financial,
ETFs,
rather
but
Qatar
also
Exchange
we are
CEO.
introducing tools to help these products like margin trading, short selling, liquidity provision, market making. All these are needed for the local and international investor.
So in terms of Qatar Exchange, we are liberalizing. In terms of financial center, we are liberalizing. In terms of regulatory framework, you have a new bankruptcy code. If you want to close your business, you can close and have an exit strategy. If you want to have a dispute, if you have a dispute between the contractor and subcontractor, there's a new arbitration. Or between the project owner and the contractor, there's a new arbitration law, which is a compulsory evidence for us to believe the business will be fully protected in terms of your just. So plenty of re-regulation is taking place, and that's my message, including free zone has come up. Development Bank, watch this video. That's Qatar Development for you. Qatar Development Bank, one of the best performing development bank in the region as such. They have thrown multi-billion towards many business houses, including small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. So then comes the investors on the new business opportunities, single window within 72 hours, as I mentioned. You can own your factory within 72 hours. I want to invite you all to Qatar and explore the possibilities. Doha Bank in Kuwait as well as in Doha will support you to get this license within 72 hours to set up a factory. And that's an opportunity. We have World Cup, which is coming up recently because of the speculation in the market, whether the World Cup will go ahead or not, whether the business will be as usual or not. We call it as new normal. And FIFA World Cup is happening. They commissioned a new stadium. It's all business as usual, and we have a new port again. Look at the inauguration as well. So we have, I said this in the video clip, the new port is $7.2 billion worth of new port is commissioned. No? I have to get it done. Can you play it again, the port? Go back to the slide. Blow it up. Yes. Then next one.
Qatar's Emir has opened the new Hamad port as part of a wider plan to increase non-petroleum exports. It means larger container ships can go directly to Doha rather than docking in the United Arab Emirates, where cargo was transferred to smaller vessels. The UAE is one of the countries that have imposed a land, air, and sea blockade on Qatar. The port will have an annual capacity of 7.5 million shipping containers and separate terminals dedicated to general cargo, serial vehicles, and livestock. It's expected to be fully operational by 2020. The existing Doha port will then be transformed into an international cruise ship terminal.
It came very handy when it comes to blockade. There's a new terminal was almost ready by the time in May, June. There's a test run. Hamad port used to run with 70% capacity utilization. Now you have a new port which is fully functional, 100% capacity utilization. It's huge, huge momentum now, back in track for export-import. Tourism. There's another area where Qatar is promoting now, like Kuwait is exploring the opportunities, including Al Khairan Resort plus Bibian Island. Now, there's a bigger opportunity for Qatar tourism. That's a glimpse of the Qatar tourism for you. And now the new visa rules is another opportunity where waiver of entry visa for citizens, 80 countries as I mentioned. And that's an ignition now to promote influx of people now. That's happening.
Long-term residents will have to meet certain criteria to qualify, including providing a valuable contribution to Qatar's progress, having a special talent likely to benefit the nation, and or having a Qatari mother.
So you find a D-shaped building, that's Doha Bank in the West Bay. So that's Doha Bank, that's right, yes. Do you have the clips of Qatar blockade? You have? The other sort of, can you go back to that? Some people have asked me, what is this blockade? What is happening there? I just want to clarify you, because that will also clear your doubts. What exactly happening? Because many of you must have visited Qatar. Now the current development in terms of the blockade is a concern for many businessmen. And as I said, in terms of the overall change, the blockade becomes an opportunity. The crisis now is becoming an opportunity to Qatar become more resilient. Can you pull this clips? I just want to showcase. Yeah, can you play
Qatar
this?
is currently being blockaded by its neighbors. Its only land border with Saudi Arabia is shut down, and it can't bring anything or anyone in or out. It's also been blocked from using the airspace or ports of Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt. Qatar's economy relies heavily on importing food, exporting oil and natural gas, and air travel. So what does this all mean, and how is it impacting the country? This is what things used to look like. Qatar used to bring $1 billion worth of food and raw materials by land through its only border with Saudi Arabia. Its biggest imports like cars and aircraft equipment would be dropped off by cargo ships to Dubai and Abu Dhabi before being shipped to its own ports. And its oil and gas shipments would head through these same two ports to get to its clients in Japan, South Korea, India, China, and the UAE as well. Its airline, Qatar Airways, is one of the biggest, and its airport connects flights heading all over the world. So what has changed? For one thing, it can't bring in food from Saudi Arabia anymore, leaving a shortage of basics like water, sugar, meat, and vegetables. It's now getting some of it from Jordan and relying on large food flights from Turkey and Iran. Qatar says it's looking as far as Brazil and Australia for regular food imports in the future. Its major exports have also taken a hit, with some international carriers refusing to send ships straight to its ports. Instead, it's now bypassing the boycott altogether and sending its oil and gas through ports in Oman. It's actually still sending natural gas to the UAE despite the blockade, which could sway the Emiratis into easing restrictions. Finally, with hundreds of daily flights to its neighboring countries now cancelled and restrictions imposed on where it can fly, Qatar is having to reroute all of its flights through Iran and Oman, making its flights to Africa, Europe, and South America much longer. Qatar's finance minister says the country has enough money in the bank to survive this diplomatic crisis. But how long can it last?
How long it will last? That's the question. Nevertheless, now we have tested it in the last 3 months. It's been a resilient economic momentum. Now, some of the interesting reassurance by certain people like finance minister, the country's central bank governor, we have reasons to believe, as I mentioned, the statistics which I mentioned, we have enough reasons to believe that we have sufficient. Now, I'm going to skip many of this. I'm going to go to straight away.
You know that not too long ago I announced that I was going to increase 24 new destinations. I couldn't do it because I had capacity restraint. Now that we have released capacity from the 18 destinations that we have been barred illegally from operating, we are now going to accelerate the other regions of the world where we feel that we will mitigate the reduction in passenger numbers from these 18 destinations.
Well,
so Qatar Airways has a robust plan B to continue our march ahead.
This plan B is what I talked about. Let's see what the finance minister has to say.
It's a big economy. It's almost, we're talking about almost a $200 billion GDP of state of Qatar. We are very much well-diversified economy. We are, if you look at our energy sector and where we stand on this, that's also has been, things are business as usual, so it's moving very well. If you look at where we stand in food securities and what things happening inside the country, I think you are now in Doha, you've been here for a few days and you told.
Let's see what the central bank governor has to say.
Another issue I know you
Read the
It's mine.
underlying statements by Moody's or other rating agencies. It has moved from AA2 to AA3. The AA rating is a worthy credit. The outlook has been put to negative. It means the borrowing cost for the sovereign or institutions may go up slightly. It doesn't imply anything beyond that. Conceptually, Qatar economy, as you rightly said, I did say in Geneva, in European Business School, Qatar economy is sustaining its credit. It's oil, gas, and petrochemicals. That's what we consume across the globe. And we have, if you look at the breakups last year, around 64
Apart
billion
from me, the
Qatar
central bank
riyal.
governor is here.
Played a big role as Qatar Central Bank. And we find our banking sector is well capitalized, meeting the Basel III. They have high liquid asset, plus they has a very good interbanking activity inside and outside. And they are very stable at this moment. So we don't believe that there is
anything to worry about. That's what he says. So on the business front, let's look at it. Now, somebody is importing, look at this, they're importing cows. Thousands of cows have been imported. Cows have been airlifted. Now we are going to have 25,000 cows in the next 1 year, and we'll produce our dairy and we'll export dairy. So they all rightly seat belted in the aircraft and imported cows. Now let me stop at this. I can go on. Now, the purpose of this session, as I want to conclude now, is to recognize Oman is a great beneficiary in the whole frame. The transshipments have moved from Jebel Ali to Sohar port, and the business tie-ups are mushrooming. The next destination I see is Kuwait. I think Kuwaiti businessmen and Qatari businessmen can come together, whether small or medium or big enterprise, can look at the opportunities. There are plenty of growth in both the economies. I think we as Doha Bank should play the financial intermediary role, and we are doing it now with Oman. We are working through the banks. We have facilitated, in fact, there was a large Qatari delegation went to Oman, and we made the Chamber of Commerce. We had what we used to get from Al Rawahi. Now it's coming from Oman National Dairy. So we have refreshments or dairy, everything is coming from Oman as well. So I want Kuwaiti businessmen to take part in the overall economic momentum, whether trade or investments, banking or finance, small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. We want to invite you to come to Qatar, and we are here to facilitate this. Many of the business houses here wants to know, how do we get into action there? What are the various opportunities there? And that is why we thought it's appropriate to showcase this, bringing Qatar and Kuwait together, showcasing the bigger picture, economic stability, financial stability, the growth in both the economies, and see what sort of professional role we can play as bankers. My branch here in Kuwait has been an outstanding performer over the last 9 years. And we are always, every year, many of you have attended these sessions. We do the knowledge sharing sessions to showcase what sort of opportunities we can create for you. And we have bigger opportunities in the coming months. Both the sides are going through huge transformation changes. Vision 2035 here, Vision 2030 there. And again, Infrastructure creation in both sides, Qatar side as well as Kuwait side. Financial stability, both are strong economies. Small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, bigger opportunities. Fiscal reforms in both the sides. Healthcare growing in both the sides. So plenty of opportunities for business community to come and put the investment partnership together. Me and Doha Bank is committed to do this. And that is why I thought it's appropriate to tell you the real story, especially when you have so much you are hearing through financial medias and televisions. We thought it's appropriate to show the facts and figures and invite you to do business in both the sides. I'm also going to bring in Qatari delegation here, and I'm going to interface the Qatari delegation with the local businessmen here and build the partnership between these two wings, between these two blocks. And that's the very purpose of my session. So I once again thank you very much for your kind presence, and I would like to answer any questions. We have a delicious dinner.